I grew up in an idyllic slice of heaven within the chaotic footprint of San Francisco. Picture a hill that gradates impossibly, so steep that steps were carved into the concrete in an attempt to give a chance to power walkers and grannies alike. At the top of this hill is a dead end and a full view of the bay, glimmering deep sapphire water dotted with sailing vessels and cargo ships. The dead end turns into a lush, hidden garden stairway that descends the second half of the block through succulents, snaking ivy, and thick oak trees. Cabbage-white butterflies, bumblebees, dragonflies, and hummingbirds buzz in and out of the jasmine and aloe plants, and squirrels rest in the shade of the red-flowering gum trees. The famous wild parrots of Telegraph Hill sing and dance as they feed on fallen crabapples. Neighbors maintain this garden. They double park and ring each other's doorbells when they need to move their cars. They know each other's names. My family's apartment was perched within the urban thicket of Telegraph Hill, nestled inset from the street. The home was small and rent-controlled but classically beautiful. The roof boasted a 360-degree view of the Embarcadero, the Bay Bridge, the Financial District, Chinatown, Russian Hill, the Marina, and Coit Tower. But this story isn't about the hill or the house. It's about the dark, subterranean walkway that connects the two. I can't remember a time that I wasn't terrified of the hallway. No matter what the weather was like outside, as soon as you stepped inside, you were hit with an offensive, thick, dank wall of ice-cold air. Because of its position underneath the surrounding apartment buildings, no sunlight got through and there was no light bulb installed. As a result, it was bathed in perpetual midnight. The floor was stained with cracked concrete, and the walls were crumbling rock and dirt. Metal pipes ran above my head that gurgled and clanked. As a little kid, I would stand paralyzed at the entrance to the hallway. I froze as my body screamed danger and my mind went blank. As a teenager, coming home drunk late at night, regardless of how bolstered my confidence had been by the evening's escapades, I always hesitated before pushing open the heavy door that separated the clear night sky from the dark, dungeon-esque hallway. "This is your house," I'd tell myself. "There's nothing to be afraid of." But my self-assurance dissolved as soon as I took the first step in, and I found myself first walking quickly, then jogging, then tearing through the hallway as fast as my legs would carry me, heart thumping in my ears, all self-control lost as my body shifted into a panic state. There was always an intense feeling that someone was right on my heels, cracked fingertips grasping for the back of my shirt, cold breath on the nape of my neck. And as I slammed my front door behind me, every night I cursed myself for being so childish, so irrational, so afraid. My brother and I had dreams about the hallway throughout our childhoods and into our teenage years. In one, my brother dreamt that there was a shadowy, towering figure at the end of the hallway that wouldn't let him pass. In another, he dreamt that he was being chased through the hallway by 3 rabid Dobermans. No matter how far he ran, the hallway kept extending out in front of him, a never-ending extension of dread with a horizon that would never come. My dreams tended to revolve around a small, dingy room built off of the hallway. In real life, this room was used to store the trash cans for our building. In my dreams, it housed an unknown, unseen, faceless horror. The presence within the room would try to communicate as I walked by. Sometimes my dream self would be frozen in fear, other times shot with adrenaline. Sometimes, pale, spindly fingers would push their yellowing nails through the slats of rotting, paint-chipped wood that made up the door to the room. Sometimes I could make out a frail voice from behind the door calling out my name. In 2007, when I was a junior in high school, we got evicted through the Ellis Act. It was a bullshit law in San Francisco that made it legal to evict families if the building owner or someone in their family planned to move in. It was a dirty trick that landlords used to get rent-controlled tenants out so they could gut the property, renovate, and re-rent it for market value. Some of you reading this right now may have even been at the blowout rager I threw after our apartment had been emptied out, but that's a story for another time. It was a Sunday morning and our last day in the apartment. The house had been emptied and we were finished cleaning. My mom and brother were in the car outside waiting for me. As I walked down the hallway for the final time, I paused outside the trash room. This would be my final chance to face the irrational terror that had gripped me my whole life. I took a deep breath and pulled the flimsy door open, holding my breath. I let out a sigh of relief to see an empty room. Sure, it was dirty and had bits of trash strewn about. But there was no monster, no unholy presence. I laughed to myself, feeling confident in this space for the first time. Then I noticed something. There was a stained piece of plywood leaning against the wall. It took me a second to realize that it was covering a hole in the wall, no bigger than 3 feet tall. Bolstered by self-assurance and a knowledge that I would never be back, I dropped to my knees and turned on my phone's flashlight. I pushed the plywood to the side and stuck my head through the hole. It led to a second, much smaller room. I shined the flashlight into the second room, crawled inside, and the air left my body. This second space looked like a tableau frozen in time. Retro 1970s Budweiser cans and Marlboro packs were strewn about, and the whole room was covered in a thick layer of dust. There was a disgusting torn mattress stained with brown and yellow in the corner. Littering the floor were what looked like doodles of various men's portraits, some unfinished, some with the eyes burnt out with cigarettes. As I shined my flashlight across the walls, I was startled to see that they too were covered in smeared portraits of men from decades past. Tacked to the wall between these portraits were yellowing newspaper cutouts. I squinted as I read the headlines in the dim light. San Francisco Chronicle, January 24th, 1974. An unidentified body was discovered on Ocean Beach. San Francisco Chronicle, June 25th, 1974. Another slain man was found near Spreckles Lake in Golden Gate Park. The victim was born on July 7th, 1974, and was found stabbed to death below the Cliff House. June 4th, 1975. An immigrant was found dead at Land's End. There were dozens of these clippings. Ice cut through my arteries as I became overwhelmed with the energy of this place. Whatever evil lurked here in the past never truly left. Psychic reverberations manifested throughout the decades, and every time I had passed, they had screamed at me and demanded acknowledgement. I trembled as a concentrated instantiation of malevolence crept into my throat and I struggled to breathe. For a moment, panic overcame my body, but for a moment, I was once again paralyzed as I had been in my childhood dreams. When I heard my mother leaning on the horn outside on the hill, I was startled out of my stupor. I practically dove through the hole in the wall and fucking kicked rocks, never looking back.